have we got going on? So we'll say most of the lightning right now in the western part of the eye wall. Our infrared satellite, I'm going to go ahead and make it rainbow because it does get easier to look at when it's got all the different colors on it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of try to draw this out for you guys. And what you're going to see is why kind of this thing is turning more towards the east than what is expected. All right. So our low that's driving this cold front is like well off to the north here, and you've kind of got this front like creeping down like so. Maybe I drew a little more east than what it actually is at this point, but keep in mind that Helene's kind of been pushing back on the southern portions of this front. That front grabbed it and just started yanking it northeast from the ocean. Hurricanes do not usually move this fast. That's why we're expecting these kind of conditions as far inland as they are, is the cold front tugging this thing off to the north-northeast. That's the direction it has been going since it made that turn at the Yucatan. Essentially is it's been going to the north-northeast. Big hurricanes, a lot harder to steer than smaller ones. Like I mentioned earlier with the analogy, if you're driving a small car, you want to avoid a pothole, all you do is you drift your wheel to the left a little bit and then you drift it back right and you're back in your lane, you're good to go. You try to make that move in an 18-wheeler with a loaded trailer and you're probably going to overturn your truck. So this is a really big storm and it does not turn on a dime. That doesn't mean it can't start to go west, but one thing to keep in mind is that in terms of an upper level low, it's not a lower level low. There's not low pressure over Memphis at the surface. That's just aloft. This is low pressure aloft and at the surface. The cold front is also at the surface. So that's why I'm not surprised at all that we are starting to see this thing move to the northeast. In fact, I think back to 2019 with Hurricane Dorian and how close that thing was coming in to the coast here, and suddenly it made a sharp turn to the northeast. Why? It got caught by a cold front. Let's look back at last year. Hurricane Lee tracking up the Atlantic coast, almost went up to Maine, and eventually I think it made landfall around that Nova Scotia area in Canada. Again, coming our direction, cold front comes from the coast, yanks it northeast. Hurricanes are big systems, but they are an order of magnitude smaller than cold front systems that are driven by the jet stream. So very hard for this thing to try and push back against it. It slowed the front down, which led to excess rainfall making its way into much of northern and northwestern Georgia. But as a result, we are seeing this thing taking a little bit more of an easterly track. Keep in mind that that cone essentially brings it right up through here, through Macon, and that direction to the west. That is not how our eye is moving right now. You can clearly tell it is veering to the east of that line. Now, let's go ahead and get a closer look here, all right? So obviously, we're seeing some decently intense conditions starting to make their way into middle Georgia. Right now, a lot of that is really just rain, but the wind will be picking up here, especially in the southern counties, very shortly. So we're going to go ahead and zoom back in, and you're going to see also that tornado risk kind of shifting a little more into South Carolina now. There is a confirmed tornado warning in Beaufort, so maybe it's not confirmed now. It looks like a little red spot kind of popping up in the middle, but at least it was confirmed. That's what that purple warning means. But for us here, again, we're monitoring where this eye goes. The worst conditions of Helene are on the eastern side of this eye wall, and right now they are with some really heavy rain as well. I just mentioned Valdosta, 115 mile per hour wind, 133 mile per hour gusts were recorded at the Valdosta airport. This eye nearly done clearing I-75, moving off to the north-northeast, but it's going to take a lot to try and turn that thing back to the west. Now, what does it mean for us as a whole in middle Georgia if this eye ends up going more easterly like this? Well, I've mentioned several times that if we're on the west side of that eye, our effects are not going to be as bad. The strongest winds are on the east. The tornado threats are mainly on the east. We've obviously had some tornado warnings today. We had two confirmations. We had that one in Telfair County earlier, and then we had the one, unfortunately, in Wheeler County that sadly claimed a couple of lives. Never ever want to hear about that. That's one of the biggest concerns with overnight tornadoes, and why you've got to be able to get those warnings is because you can't see them, especially with these types of storms. There's almost no lightning at all. So when there's no lightning, you even get a look at it, you really got to depend on those warnings to know, hey, what's coming, when do I need to be in my shelter, etc. And in terms of mobile homes, those are not safe to be in regardless when it